Hello, and welcome to Crime Bytes, the show where we talk about some truly bizarre and disturbing crime cases. My name is Liz, and today is True Crime Tuesday. So I'm going to start today by saying sorry, I've been absent for a few months. Life has been crazy in some very good and very bad ways. If you'd like to know a little bit more about what's going on with me, check out my new channel intro. But I did really want to get back into this, so here I am. Hi! So when looking for a case to talk about as I kind of jump back into this, I was looking for a case with a bunch of twists and turns, and for this reason I found one that, well, you'll see. Let's just get right into it because I straight up don't even know what to think. Anyhow, happy Halloween! And no, I'm not going to be Harley Quinn for Halloween. This is a thing. Yes, it's kind of a nod to the jokers I've been having the luck of dating lately, and also that I'd like to get my master's in forensic psychology, maybe a doctorate one day. Anyhow, me and my son are being TV people. If you know, you know. Anyways, let's meet Sherri. Isn't she lovely? Like, too pretty to be real almost. And in this picture, she is with her husband, Keith. And here they are with their two beautiful children. Okay, don't get too jealous because this story is wild. Anyhow, Sherri was born on June 11th, 1982, and she was from Redding, California. She met her husband, Keith, in middle school, where the two shared their first kiss, but then ended up going their separate ways. Sherri would actually marry someone else briefly and divorce before reconnecting with Keith. Well, not quite divorced, but yeah. She reconnected with Keith and they started their family. After the third date, they were inseparable and described themselves as best friends and the perfect couple. So Keith worked at Best Buy and Sherri was home raising their kids. From the outside, they were the couple to be. They had a house, the kids, the looks, things seemed perfect. Until November 2nd of 2016. It began like any normal day at the Papini household. Keith went to work, Sherri dropped the kids off at daycare, and did a few things before she began her afternoon jog. When Keith returned home, he was surprised to find that his wife and kids were not there, and even more surprised to find out that Sherri had not retrieved them from daycare. Using the Find My Phone app, he was able to locate Sherri's phone along the path that she jogged on. It was lying on the ground with headphones still attached, and there was also a long strand of her hair attached to it as well. He immediately called 911 and the search for Sherri began. Unfortunately, there wasn't all that much to go with, and although they were trying, there were no real leads. Things were not looking good for Keith and his family. Now, fast forward 22 days. Things are still not looking good. No one has heard anything or seen anything. And by now, everyone is assuming the worst. Then on Thanksgiving, she was found walking, still in chains, along the side of the road, about 140 miles away from home. Sherri would say that two Hispanic women had kidnapped her at gunpoint and held her captive while she was gone. Sherri would state that they abused her both sexually and by beating her and branding her. Her beautiful long blonde hair was cut short, her nose was broken, and she had lost a significant amount of weight. The women fed her very little, abused her, and branded her when she attempted to escape. And they also talked about a buyer, which led Sherri to believe that she was being trafficked. She was held until the smaller of the two women shot the other one and then loaded Sherri into their SUV and left her on the side of the road near where she was found, saying only, "Get out." So it seems that as far as human trafficking cases go, Sherri was extremely fortunate. I mean, she was released in the end and reunited with her family. Unfortunately, what seems like a happy ending isn't exactly what it seems. Police noticed some inconsistencies in Sherri's story, which caused them to investigate further. After a few years of looking for Sherri's abductors, there was a break in the case, and it led police to bring Sherri in for a little chat. And why? for lying to federal agents and faking her own kidnapping. Now, here's a quick clip of Sherri when she was initially being interviewed shortly after she got back. She was having a hard time remembering certain details.
I'm trying to think like where my muscle's sore, was my ear sore? Because when I lay on my ear for a long time, it hurts. And I could wake up and I can't remember any of that.
Other details she didn't have such a hard time remembering.
Do you remember any music as you were driving?
Yes, mariachi music.
Now, why would anyone do that? And her wounds were not superficial at all. As you can see, her nose was still bandaged from the break. So what was going on here? Let's meet another character in our story, James Reyes. He was Sherri's other boyfriend in high school and the person Sherri spent her 22 days in captivity with. So what really happened? So for now, we need to forget all the mariachi music and other strange lies from Sherri and get into what really happened on November 6th. So when Sherri went out for her jog, she wasn't expecting to come back. James had rented a car and picked her up, and she left her hair and her phone for her husband to find later, indicating that she was abducted. Sherri and James would head to his place where he would keep her there and she would figure out what to do next. She cooked for him and then barely ate herself. She had him shoot a hockey puck at her legs and then had him help her brand herself and break her own nose. But why? We still don't know exactly why. She did tell him she wanted to leave Keith and that he abused her, so James thought that he was helping her while she was figuring out what to do next, and pretty much all the while hoping she would be deciding to be with him again. But she decided that she missed her kids too much, or so it would seem, and came back with this wild kidnapping story that she hoped would end up not incriminating anyone in the end. We guess. No such luck. So when she did come back with her crazy story, she did have some DNA in her underwear and it was male. So after quite a few tests that were ran, the FBI finally got a familial match and that linked to a name that they could link Sherri to, James Reyes. And when they went to question him, he was honest about his involvement. So from there, they brought Sherri in for questioning and she is sat down with Keith and they start showing her pictures from James's apartment and they completely match the descriptions of the table that she gave where she was branded and the closet where she was held. She's trying to pretend the whole time that she has no idea and that it's a coincidence that they look so much alike. The officers are nice too. They give her a chance to talk to Keith. They try to talk to her alone, and finally she tries to spin it that she didn't know that James was involved and that he must have hired the two Mexican ladies, to which they're just like, ma'am. I mean, James already told them his involvement. He was confused about the whole thing as well. Here are some clips from that interview that basically show the agents calling her out, and she's trying really hard to spin it, but just watch.
That first picture that has the wood paneling,
Yes.
and it's got the table, right? So that's ultimately what led us to those pictures, which then snowballed us down the road that we're eventually at and where we are.
So were
today.
you able to find like where that house is?
Yes.
And what?
So-
Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
That's where I was going next.
Do the top one or two.
And may I ask, how did we even get to that point? How did we get that based off?
Familia DNA.
So they said, they came back and said, oh, here's some people related in this familia.
There's about 40 people total.
That's a good thing, I guess.
But
And
40 is
then
better than
you just started
60
going
million.
through and then
130, whatever the
boom,
numbers
that
are.
caught your eye. which-
Yeah, we started looking at everything that we could. Phones, online presence,
Cool.
criminal history, Facebook photos, DMV photo, what
Just
did
happy
they
to hear you guys are
drive.
still on.
And like James' DNA was confirmed on your clothing. two of you haven't seen each other in over a decade. If you told me that you haven't been in his room, you haven't had contact with him in over 10 years, however,
You described his bedroom to a T.
and the DNA on you was still a vibrant piece of DNA. James told me everything. So the only person that hasn't started telling us certain facts, there are certain facts that are true. When we were sitting there talking to James, there were so many truths that were a part of your story that it's hard to decipher the lies until we put it all together. Until he says, hey, how did you pick her up? I opened up the passenger side seat, I opened the door, you jumped in the back seat. Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? I don't know. It was weird. So are you calling James a liar? Are we not believing James what he told me?
No.
I know you're
I
scared.
cannot believe that it is James.
I can't believe James told us the truth.
So James is involved. But I don't.
James picked you up. You called James to pick you up. You mailed him a letter with your address. You used a burner phone to call another burner phone for James to come and get you.
You're saying since you're married you haven't called James?
No, I haven't called James.
Because earlier you said you had contacted James. His phone records show that you do. You did. The phones don't lie, the DNA doesn't lie, Sherri.
His polygraph doesn't lie.
So you can go a couple different directions now.
His story.
I've already told you lying to me is a crime. So you walk out the door telling lies, and that's a crime.
I think we need my lawyer. This isn't making any sense.
No, it's not making sense, Sherri. The parts that
That
don't make
it's
sense.
James.
No, the parts that don't make sense are that you're accusing two females who abducted you when it was James. The part that you were branded, James did it. He told me he did it. Who would sit there and say, I branded Sherri on her right shoulder blade? Who does that?
You told us how and showed us the letters that matched the brand.
Took us to the store and pointed out the letters. The problem is today's the case is resolved. Everything, the only things, well, how do we prove that you're telling us the truth? How do we prove that the truth is that two women took you, but I'm telling you it's a male? The fact that you were branded is true. The small fact is that you willingly laid down and did it versus being tied to a table. So we could do the polygraph and try to, whatever parts you're confused about.
Can you go? Is that what you said?
Can I talk to you outside real quick? Or wait?
That's fine. The fears of how out of control everything got, the fear of all these things is the reality. And the only people that can slow the train down is you and I.
It seems that the branding was the point where Keith is just like, no, I'm done. And can you blame him? Here is a clip from when they finished with Sherri. She decides to stick to her guns for the moment anyhow, and she gets a lawyer. But then they bring poor Keith back in, and just watch.
Idiot husband that stayed around the whole time.
Well, there's not, it's still, we can't tell you a lot, honestly. I don't know what, I told Kelly to let you know some of the details, some of the stuff coming out.
Can we, I mean, from my side, I feel like, my whole world's gonna flip upside down again. Why is that? Why am I always getting held out of things? Like, why can't you just hit me with it?
I did, I told you.
I know, yeah.
Because this happened Monday.
No, you're saying you can't tell me all this stuff.
It's still an ongoing investigation, so you're not going to find out answers. I mean, that's the way it is.
Can you help me, throw me a bone and then go, I mean, she made it up, is that where we're going, right? Or is she trying to come up with a whole nother?
We're not going to give you any additional details. Obviously, you heard the questions, so you can
Yeah.
read through some of those and understand. You've seen some of the photos.
Yeah.
So you know some of the
Well,
investigative work
obviously you
we've
saw me, I
done.
was like, yeah, we found him.
And we did.
Yeah,
But you can also notice your reaction compared to her reaction.
yeah, no, 100%. That's what I'm saying from my side, but now you're telling me, okay, you guys can go home now. Well, do you think I want her anywhere around my kids or around me at all at this point? We can all agree that she's not over there, then obviously if somebody can do something like that to their body and try to trick everybody that they're probably not fit
It
to.
was 4 years ago.
We can't get into that, but I would say, obviously, we are concerned about the welfare. We don't want any kind of domestic dispute between you two. We also don't want,
So give me a quick not legal advice, give me it from a sheriff. If I don't want her in my house tonight, what options do I have?
You'd have to get restraining orders. You'd have to get legal stuff.
Like, I'm not going anywhere with you until
if you guys want to type out in the car and then come back up and tell us if you need assistance, let us know.
You have my
I
number.
appreciate that. I think I'm handling pretty good. I didn't punch any walls or nothing. I was just
We
I'm
appreciate
shocked.
that.
I'm shocked. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Poor guy. So 6 weeks after her arrest, Sherri signed a plea deal that admitted that she faked the whole kidnapping. In September of 2022, she was sentenced to 18 months in prison and she was fined over $300,000. Last August, she was released from prison into a halfway house. So why did she do it? We still have no idea. Keith seems like a decent guy by all outside accounts, and from what we can see clearly from her interactions that we just looked at, she has an issue with lying. Was it for attention? The money she ended up having to pay back and then some? Was she trying to teach Keith some sort of lesson, or did she just want a break? What do you think? Either way, it seemed like she was going to get away with it if it wasn't for that male DNA that really just ended up blowing the whole case open. A lot of people are comparing her to a real-life Gone Girl, which is interesting because elements of the story do kind of parallel that book and movie phenomena. And ironically, the movie came out 2 years before Sherri pulled off this hoax of hers, which begs the question: was she inspired by the movie or book Gone Girl? Because I remember reading the book with some of my coworkers and was like, yeah. At the time I was with someone who I knew was cheating, so I was totally daydreaming about Gone Girling him. But I didn't. Keywords there, I didn't. If Sherri was attempting to do something along those lines, we don't know, but she insisted she loved her husband and she wasn't trying to frame him for anything. But it seemed like she was doing a similar thing to get some sort of level of fame, and then she did end up paying her credit cards down with money that was raised on GoFundMe to help find her, so there's that as well. And that is going to do it. But as always, let's end today on a more positive note. So straight up, I was almost going to cut this section, but I decided not to. It's literally the hardest one or part to do with researching because good news, unfortunately, is a lot harder to find. But for that reason, I want to keep it, even if it's something smaller, because good deeds and positive actions should be shouted louder than all this other nonsense, in my humble opinion anyways. So today we're going to look at a real human trafficking based story. We're going to highlight a group of rogue volunteers in San Diego. The group is called Saved America. Saved America is a nonprofit effort of 28 ex-Navy SEALs and police officers who donate their time to saving victims of sex trafficking. They literally will snatch girls away from situations and bring them home safely. They are usually contacted by parents or families of victims, and then they use social media, research, and other undisclosed methods to locate the victims. Unfortunately, the laws are not completely in favor of people attempting to help these victims, and there seem to be many loopholes in the traffickers' favor. And groups like Saved in America are helpful in filling these gaps and helping some of these victims. And thank God for people willing to put themselves at risk like that to help those victims who need it so much. It was interesting because I was looking initially for a standalone rescue case, and I was surprised by how many of these human trafficking cases are just so tied into domestic violence and controlling relationships. It was outright appalling, if I can be frank. But please do some of your own research. It's a nasty topic. It's not for the weak, but the more people that get outraged about it, hopefully we can start making a difference. For now, I've included a link to the human trafficking hotline and their phone number in the description. Maybe a couple other links if I can add some at or around posting. You know the old saying, if you see something, say something. Really though, you could save someone's life. So guys, let me know what you think about today's stories in the comments below. Do you think Sherri Papini was inspired by Gone Girl? What do you think drove her to do what she did? Some sort of severe narcissism, perhaps? I mean, if, and that's a big if, she was being honest about loving her husband and kids, she was thinking she could just go back to them and get away with this, so it had to be for the fame and possibly money? Maybe? I'm really not sure. Let me know what you think. And please don't go thinking about Gone Girling on anybody. There are so many better choices you could make. And whatever you do with yourself, until next time, stay safe out there and take care.